Welcome back to the MMA Creators Podcast on every Sunday, joined by myself, Will at Casuals Corner, and Leo of Leo Cooper MMA. We've got a few things to discuss today. I'm feeling pretty lethargic, I would say, after a pretty hectic weekend. And Leo, how are you feeling today? How was your week?
Tough, I think, on every front. I think that can only really be reflected by today. I haven't written a single word of a script, which I was supposed to start, because I'm so just mentally burnt out a little bit. But I got on stream earlier. I didn't really want to do it, but I think sometimes in life, and specifically with YouTube and content creation, you've got to do the things you don't want to, and you'll feel better for it. I guess that works with a lot of things, exercise as well. But I did the stream and I felt a lot better after it. And obviously jumping straight through into recording for today. But at the moment, kind of just going through the motions, searching for a video idea at the moment. That's kind of my most pressing matter, deciding what I want to create, because I'm at that point where I'm starting to prefer longer commitments towards individual projects, which means when I do make a video, I want to make sure it's worth the while. It's worth investing my time into monetarily and creatively. So mixed bag of emotions, but on the whole, I'm doing okay. No training, of course, because I think I mentioned it on stream or maybe on here actually last week, that I got ringworm, which is brilliant. So I've been out and still am out waiting for this stupid thing on my leg to fade until I can get back on the mats. But it's not looking good on that front. And then again, I spoke about this. It makes you realize how much you miss exercise when you're not doing it. Even if there's days when you wake up and you don't want to get on the mats, or you don't want to hit the bag or whatever it is, when you don't do it, you feel a hell of a lot worse. So that's a bit of a negative side to this week, but yeah.
I feel like the live stream is the creator equivalent of the ice bath sometimes.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that you just, dip your shoulders in. All right, cool, I'm in. I can stay in and we can crank this out. Have you had any crisp white towels to give a good little scratch to the ringworm?
What do you mean? Like,
have you been itching it?
Oh, yeah, a little bit. Trying not to.
How satisfying?
No, not that. It's not that bad.
Oh.
You'd be surprised. Not that bad for me. It's just annoying because it's just like one of those things. Like, I feel fine. Obviously, it's not something that's like really debilitating at all. It just, from a precaution perspective, I can't train until it's sorted out. But I'll probably go back on Tuesday. It's at that point where I've, been treating it for a while, so it shouldn't be contagious, and I'm going to wrap it and should be okay, generally speaking.
It's one of the most contagious bacteria or infections there is literally in existence, is how it was described.
That is reassuring.
So it's always in sport and things, it carries pretty quickly. But the reason they always say not to scratch it is obviously irritation, but also to spread it.
Yeah.
But for anyone that hasn't had ringworm, there is this incredible relief that scratching it with a towel out of the shower just provides it. It's insane. Quite a weird topic of conversation to get onto.
We do love the tangents.
We do. But let's dive in a little bit more to the week. We'll have a little conversation, then we'll get into the back end of the cards. We had UFC Paris last weekend, technically this weekend.
Yes.
Losing the plot, and then obviously we've got a big pay-per-view coming up as well. And whenever you have Alex Pereira at the top of the pay-per-view, it's a very big week. You said you were burnt out. What do you think's been contributing to that?
Life stuff mainly. I feel like that's something I kind of got to work on. Whenever stuff outside of work begins to affect me, it kills all of my creative motivation and motivation to work, because it tends to just take up pretty much 99% of my brain space, and all my productivity goes out the window. And that's definitely partly due, as a result of today. I haven't got much done work-wise outside of the stream and of course the podcast, which are the commitments I promised myself I'd stick to. And there's no time scale with my videos. I can work on them when I want, so I don't feel as bad, at least taking an extra day off in terms of the YouTube side of things. But yeah, that's the main driving factor. It's just stuff going on outside of work, which is always usually the harder part. If I'm dealing with stresses inside of work and inside of YouTube and creating, I can generally just power through them or find ways to work around. But yeah, with live stuff, it's just for some reason takes it out of me. Everyone's wired different, but that's probably my big Achilles heel on the mental front, I reckon.
How'd you get around that?
I don't. I guess I just keep going until I feel a little bit better.
Is a better question.
Again, well, everybody's different, right? I mean,
how should you?
Oh, me. Oof.
What do you need to do to make sure that the losses or damage on the business in regards to time commitment or output is lessened by these events? What does that look like? Just intrigued personally.
I think, with that perspective, it's probably mindfulness is a big thing. I think just perspective. As I said, I just said acknowledging the idea that I can work when I want to work and I have that freedom. So it's not the end of the world to take a day off. I have the privilege to be able to do that. And if that means doubling up the next day, that's okay. I can think about that then. So it's kind of being able to mentally at least plan a little bit, or be able to compromise. I think that's probably the better phrase to use. Being able to compromise on your workflow and your scheduling, and that tends to help a little bit. But it's also just recognizing, I think, things are going to get better. I think a lot of people get stuck in a rut, myself including. Sometimes you just go down these mental rabbit holes and you can't really get out. And I think just acknowledging that, seeing the bigger picture, that's something I take on board quite a lot. And that tends to give it, I guess, a little bit of comfort. And I'm sure it'll be fine. Like I've had rough stints before. Like a couple of months ago, I was feeling demotivated, struggled to really put some good content out. But, this week, even though I did struggle, just to prove this point, I was, struggling a lot this week. I put out probably the best piece of content I've ever put out, just by pushing through and doing it. So sometimes different solutions work, but yeah, I'm confident it'll be fine. It always is. I think that's sometimes you just got to kick back and say, whatever, it'll be all right. But I don't know. I'm sure some people could probably relate to that. What I'm going through. It's tough.
I think anyone can relate to having stresses and doing work. I think at a base level, that's something that most people can relate to. And just the reason I ask about how do you improve on that is just because something I'm really trying to do recently is just be flipping so painstakingly self-aware of my character flaws to work on them. And one of them has always been timekeeping, organization, preparation, readiness. And I honestly didn't realize to the extent how much it was hindering my business at all. I just didn't realize how much I was holding myself back by being an ill-prepared person or someone that identified as not organized, someone that didn't identify as someone who wrote a to-do list for the day, the week. Even in small things, really small things, you always hear cliches, the devil's in the details, it's the small things that build up over time, all of these things. It's true. It really is true. Obviously, we've spoke about before, when you want big change, you always look for big changes, but it's the small things which accumulate over time. And one thing that I've spoke about many times, and I won't bore everyone with it again, but it's identification. How you identify, the words you use, the phrasing that you use for everything. Saying that you're a Premier League footballer isn't going to make you a Premier League footballer, of course. Like, let's use some logic. My point is, if you are on the path of becoming a professional footballer, but you're still working at a KFC to pay for the hustle, when people ask you outside of KFC, what do? You say, I'm a professional footballer. It's small things like that. Of course, if they actually asked you what you did on the side, you would also not just lie to them. Yeah. My point is how you identify with yourself, how you view things. And I've been big on that for the last year or so. And another one that I just switched recently sounds very, very trivial. Very trivial. But I had always identified as someone that worked out in the afternoon or the evening. Always. Just always one of those people. I can't do the mornings. I don't like it. It makes me feel nauseous. I don't enjoy it. Everything that I could possibly say. But the truth of it was, that was an identification I made of a previous self. When I didn't have better sleep patterns, when I didn't eat consistently as well, where I wasn't as dialed in, where I wasn't living as much completely zoned into one goal. So my identification that I've created my entire life is actually for a previous person that doesn't really exist anymore. That person drunk, he went out, he had more friends at the time, you know, he had more of a social life, done more things. There's goods and bads to the last person. But my point is he doesn't exist anymore. So you have to just constantly be re-asking these questions. Is it true? And questioning them. And the reason I say the workout thing is because now, after years, we've spoke about many times how I've just hated working out and just really fell out of love with it after my personal training sort of jobs and things like that. So finally got to a place where I built into working out every day, just for 10 minutes, 15 minutes every single day. And now I do that in the morning. Just another thing to tick off in that morning sort of routine, if you like. Get up, have a workout, have my coffee, boom, straight in for the day. Also have my work schedule drafted and ready to go, boom, for the next day. So now I'm coming into each day, and by the time I've woke up, had a workout, and sat down and had my iced coffee, I'm not scrambling together for the day thinking, okay, I need to do this, I need to do that, let me do this. Everything's drafted, everything's scheduled, everything's ready to go, and now I have full mental capacity to put towards the harder hitting projects, the things that require more mental capacity, essentially, rather than just these ambiguous tasks, emails I need to file off, drafts I need to get done, edits that I can do in my sleep. So that was one big shift for me. I know that we've gone off on a million.
No. I was just going to respond to that. Paths. I think it's interesting what you said about, falling out of love with exercise because it was becoming your work. I can attest to that. I think that's a really common thing. I said that with my degree. Yeah, well, it was. Yeah, that's what I mean. So, with my degree, when I was doing game design, I fell out of love with that. And I fell out of love with games as a whole, just temporarily because of that. It was becoming, my everything. And I said it's about finding balance. Even with MMA, I think doing what we do, there is an element of losing that love for the sport just a little bit. And I think that's a natural thing anyway, the longer you watch something or you engage with something, because the shine wears off. But I think even more so, it's just exemplified when you do it as a career and you're surrounded by it 24/7.
True.
So I think that's definitely an interesting point. I just think it's funny that, you say about this regimen, and obviously you probably didn't used to be like that, but I've spoken before, I'm just so much the opposite of that. I hate planning, I hate scheduling, and I hate
why
doing, because I find, like, as a net, I'm just like net less productive, if that makes sense. When I try and orchestrate all these things and I try and schedule and I try and time things, I lose way more motivation.
Can I push back on it?
Hit me with it, yeah.
Because one thing I will say, and I'm not saying that this is necessarily you, but it was me. So I need to be clear about this, is I think what can also happen, again, with phrasing, right? What happens is we bracket or identify ourselves into these things. So organized, not organized, messy, not messy. Very linear words. You are either
binary.
This or you're not. Binary, sorry, that's the one I'm looking for. Binary, thank you. I also think there's a middle ground, right? So I think some people are going to be organized where they have every minute penciled in. And I've also found I don't like that. Rough time blocking, I do like. This is what I mean. It's constant experimentation, right?
Yeah.
I've done it where I've booked out, okay, from this slot to this slot, I do this. From this to this, I do this. It didn't work for me. I tried it a million times. I didn't enjoy it. It just wasn't for me. And then just after many, many different attempts and trying, I found that preparation for the week is one of my biggest things. If I can Friday, Saturday, Sunday chip away at my preparation for the next week, there is this insane sort of weight that starts getting lifted off my body. Weird, where my subconscious is saying, you need to be doing this. And my actual brain is saying, we've already done this. You just don't know what preparation feels like. This is what it feels like. And I'm realizing there is so much more time in the day. So much more time in the day.
Yeah, I kind of see that.
Getting up consistently at a consistent time, just not being someone that I'll do that later. Put that on the later base. I'll do that tomorrow. I was walking up the stairs yesterday and I thought, I wonder what input any person, it doesn't really matter, myself, anyone, what does that person look like if they executed all their I'll do it tomorrows just now? just now.
Yeah.
Instead of, all right, I'll do my washing tomorrow. If you just done it now. Okay, I'll make my bed later. Do it now. Okay, I will do that edit for this particular reel, but I'll do it tomorrow. I've just shifted from that person. I'm like, no, you little bitch. Sit there, do this edit, and flipping grind it out. I'm a bit tired. I don't want to. I'm losing. Sit there, you little bitch, and edit this reel. Edit this reel and do not go to sleep until your tomorrow's to-do list is ticked off and you have everything drafted. You little whiny bitch. And I've had to just be very clear about it to myself because
I can tell.
Yeah, I just had to look in the mirror and be like,
you sound like one of those David Goggins black and white edits. You know, with like the really like deep music over the top of it. And it's like added, it's like reverb David Goggins' voice. And he's just probably on Joe Rogan or something.
It's just too easy. It's too easy. And I think anyone who knows me like fairly well would say, Will works hard, you know? I think anyone who knows me fairly
100%.
well would say that. I think you'd be hard pressed to find someone that knows me on a good level that doesn't say that. But it's a lie. It's a lie. There's so much. Saw Alex Hormozy say on a post on Instagram, and he said, you don't realize you can work 50 times harder until you see the person working 50 times harder. And I went into the comments, right? And I know that he props things up so that they're easy sound bites and also so that it appeals to a mass audience. But it also rubs people up the wrong way. That's how any good content should be. And I looked through comments and people were saying, like high profile people as well, well, there's this many hours in the day and you have, let's say you have this many businesses, you have a wife, you have a kid. And I just realised
you're looking at it the wrong way.
I was like, you've all missed the point. You've all missed everyone that's saying there's this and looking at the logistics, you've all missed the point. Of course, there's 24 hours in a day and there's 7 days in the week. That doesn't change. You don't work harder by more sweat and just output and labour. No, that'd be an inefficient and quite frankly, moronic way to do things. It's the efficiency. How can I work more efficient? Not harder. How can I work 25 hours in a day? It's how can I be more efficient with everything? And once you start doing that religiously and in a painstakingly scrutinizing way through the business, you realize, oh, I can work 1,000 times harder. 1,000 times. So that's where I'm at this week.
I kind of subscribe to what you're saying. I have kind of, without even realizing it, made changes, at least in my workflow. Like originally I used to start my script writing on the Monday. Now I've pulled it back to Sunday. I've spread it out over 2 days. And sure, it gives me one less day off per se, but it just kind of spreading out that workload just a little bit more helps because it allows me to plan things out. Like I'll bullet point on structure, particularly more so with the fighter documentaries. I've started doing that, really structuring the key points I want to hit. And I actually saw Patrick Gavia, obviously the GOAT of MMA documentaries on YouTube for those who aren't initiated. But he was doing, I believe it was like a live stream. He was just doing an editing live stream, and he was talking about the emotional beats he wants to hit, and that's how he structured his entire video. It wasn't necessarily about explicit moments in a fighter's career or anything like that. It was emotional beats that he wanted to hit that reflected that fighter's journey or story. And that was his unique way of structuring. And as I said, what you said about missing the point and being more efficient, I think it's unique for everyone's path is going to be unique with that. So everyone's going to have different ways of being efficient within their careers or their work and their lives. So I think that's a distinction everyone seems to forget. Yeah, so I agree. Everyone's like, everyone's got 24 hours and everyone's got different commitments. It's like, yeah, sure.
You missed the point.
So find what works for you. Yeah. I think that's the key takeaway there. I mean, there's more things I could do for sure. But again, baby steps, right? Again, I'm just very sporadic with the way I like to work. I do block loosely, I suppose. Like I have a rough structure to my week in terms of how I create my content. But in terms of times, I don't schedule anything at all outside of streaming and of course outside commitments.
This is the thing, right? It's even with you and with myself, it's easy to identify, again, phrasing it, content creators, right? I create content. But no, it's business. We are a business. We are a brand. We are an enterprise. So even when I talk about preparation and readiness, it's okay. Has my email been sent to the accountant? Are my accounts up to date? Are my invoices sent out to the people they need to be sent out to? You know, have all my receipts in a place which I can easily access them? Is my hard drive well laid out so that when I'm editing, I know where to go for everything?
I have not done that. Honestly, you do not want to see my folder
This
organization.
is my point,
Sorry
right?
to jump in there. It is horrendous.
Jump in wherever. But this is my point.
It is
this is what I talk about in preparation. I'm not just trying to at you here. I'm just saying there's different levels to it, right?
Makes me laugh.
Sometimes it's easy to think surface level is just, okay, time block to edit my videos. It's like, there's
be more specific.
So many more things that you can do to sort of oil the tires, if you like, of the machine, which is the final product, which you probably are going to have a more nuanced way of dealing with it because it is a creative process. So it will look quite dramatically different. My point is there's always preparation and readiness that you can do before that to sort of, again, get the wheels moving. But anyway, I think it's a good time to get maybe stuck into some fights. What do you reckon?
I think it is. I think the logical step is to look at, of course, the UFC Paris card, which we just had yesterday or the day before. Honestly, it's weird because it was at a normal time for us. It's very confusing. UFC Paris finished at a healthy time in the evening for us European fans, so a breath of fresh air. And in my opinion, what was overall a pretty damn fun card. Outside, of course, the main event, which was a bit of anticlimactic, but I can't say it wasn't expected after that absolute beatdown in the first from Renato Moicano over the hometown hero, Benoit Saint Denis. What were your initial thoughts on that one?
Your honest opinion?
Hit me with it.
As if I wasn't going to give you my honest opinion.
No, of course.
You was getting nothing but my honest opinion. Love Renato Moicano. Big fan. Absolute.
I'm waiting for the but. That's what I'm waiting for.
Ridiculous curriculum vita of late. Do you know what that is?
I don't. You've actually got me there. Ah, okay.
I think it's vita. I think it's curriculum vita, potentially. Regardless. Seriously impressive. Performance this weekend. Very impressive. I spoke a lot. And I didn't think Moicano was out of that fight at any point. But what it did humble me with is in my fight analysis and preparations, I spoke about one attribute being very prominent for Benoit Saint Denis. And I mentioned it here or there for Moicano, but I didn't make enough of a deal out of it, in my opinion, is I spoke about those kicking attacks from the southpaw, but I didn't speak enough about how also Moicano knows that and he wants to get the takedown. So is he going to be able to time those kicks, catch it and take it down? He did.
Absolutely, he did.
The reason why I was sort of sounding like I was going to lead with a but is I think because of how Benoit Saint Denis looked, because of the mic time, and because it's just another win in the column, and the first round was so dominant, 10-8 for sure.
10-7 maybe. Yeah. I think Bisping was mentioning it.
Bisping said that. Really?
I think so. Someone on commentary said it, yeah. I'm 99% sure Bisping said it.
To be fair, what
is it not
constitutes a 10-7, I suppose? Yeah. What constitutes that? I don't know.
I wouldn't be mad about it. I'm going to be honest with you. I said this on the stream earlier. There's rare times in MMA where I genuinely wince or I have to look away from the screen. I think the only real example that I consistently do is with arm bars that are very, very dangerous. This was a rare one where I generally was just kind of half shielding my eye at some of those punches that were landing because it was just a brutal beatdown. And credit to Benoit, because I think there's one of those things you can never doubt about him is his heart. He's forever in that fight, and he will not go out unless he's knocked out or on a stretcher or forced out of the fight, as he was, of course, at the end of the second. And to even further that point, scorecards had him up in the second round.
This was my
second
point.
round.
This is what I wanted to come back to. This is what I wanted to come back to.
I'll let you jump in a sec, but that's something that really confused me because I'm not sure if it's a matter of Saint Denis stepping up his game somehow after that beatdown, or Moicano taking his foot off the gas in any capacity. But that's probably the one thing about the performance I would criticize Renato for is, honestly, to me, I think he could have finished that fight at any point in that first round had he upped the pace even by 10%. I felt like he was content to just sit in mount, keep landing those shots. If he really just started hammering down, I think he would have got the finish. He was 1 or 2 punches away for a good 3-4 minutes. And for me, that lack of urgency started to show, and even more so in the second round. I'm not really sure why he was so adamant on just sitting back in that second, but happy to hear your counter.
I would say that's a bit harsh. I didn't think that at any point. The reason I didn't think that at any point, you have to remember, he has had a 5-round fight before, but it was on short notice, right? So still relatively newer to that game. He's in Paris, big name, big matchup, feels confident in the matchup as well, riding a big high, having such a dominant first round, and knows the type of person that he's in there with. There is definitely some sort of thought that says, okay, I'm having my way here. If I just completely go balls to the wall and gas out, and this geezer's so tough that he just gets through it, I'm going to be absolutely spent. So I don't know. You're not wrong. Like, you're not wrong, but you're not right. You know, I don't think either one of us. It could go either way.
We don't know, do we? Really?
It could have gone the other way, and we would be saying, "Oh, he shouldn't have gone." So it's one of those. But what I will say on it is, it's what you just said there, right? I think because of all these things, like I set it up earlier, people are actually going to forget Benoit was coming back into the fight. And if you look at the second round, I know his eyes look absolutely
Jesus, his face
battered. However, he was doing really well. And how I expected the fight to go started to look like that in the second round. We started seeing him use his straight left down the pipe, which we've seen Moicano have a deficiency to against Jalen Turner, against RDA, and against Benoit Saint Denis for a short period of time. So it was anticlimactic with how it finished. And I'm happy that Moicano got a win and got the mic and all of that. But I wanted to see that go the 5 rounds, or at least go more, because Benoit Saint Denis was not out of that fight. He was not out of that fight. And he hadn't had any offensive grappling exchanges yet either. And people may laugh and go, oh, he just got held down for a round. That isn't always how it works. Like, being off your back against someone as good as Moicano, who is as slick as that, is almost impossible at times to get off. I don't think people realise that. You look at how good someone like Petr Yan is, right? Petr Yan, not known as a grappler, but still a very good grappler. How many people have kept him on his back? Almost none, right? But then you look at what Aljo does. He gets to the back, and if someone's of such a level, it's almost impossible.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to escape back mounts. And you have to just give bad position to bad position, full mount to give back, full mount to back. And I
will
think
say, just to jump in there,
that.
Credit to Benoit, because there was actually a point where he was caught in a body triangle. And he did get out of it. Obviously, it didn't end up going particularly well for him, but the motivation there was to get out of those positions, and he did have some success. And you never know, with cardio-wise, things can just change on a dime in between rounds, you know. And we, as you said, that tide may have begun to have shifted. And of course, with Benoit winning that second round, who knows what would have happened. But I think the only problem is it's forever, unless we really get a rematch, is going to be immortalized as a what if. We're never going to know. And I guess that's kind of the no pun intended, the thrill and the agony of the UFC and MMA in general. But of course, the co-main event was Brendan Allen versus Nassourdine Imavov. Now, we both got this one wrong as well, from what I remember. I think we both picked Brendan Allen to really grind out and win a decision. But I think something to really note on is the story of the fight was the cardio, really. Brendan Allen looked like he gassed out, looked like he ran out of energy. And I think you know where I'm going with this. Because if you didn't see this in the build-up to the fight, Brendan Allen posted on his socials that he was forced to have his blood taken and urine samples taken just after weighing in without rehydrating for an extended period of time. And it's pretty crazy. And with the French commission, and he did make the claim, you know, I don't know the legitimacy of it, but that none of the French fighters were subjected to the same level of I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, treatment as him and some of the other American fighters, etc., were subjected to. So that's definitely an interesting point. And obviously, people don't realize how big of an effect weight cutting can really have unless they see the absolute extremes. But even the little nuances, you might not notice this. Fighter might look good on the scale, doesn't mean they're not gonna have a bad time cardio wise due to a cut. It's so many different factors that go into the fight week. So little things like that, giving less time to rehydrate and build yourself back up to the level you need to be at for the fight night. 24 hours later, huge difference. So that could have been a factor in why we saw Brendan perhaps look off the mark or off the pace just a little bit in those later rounds. Because I think if in other circumstances, it probably would have been a much closer fight. I think he had some good success there, particularly on the feet. I think he was catching him off with some good shots, particularly late. But I think also there's an element of his corner and his fight IQ decisions to keep shooting for those takedowns where they weren't having any success, which probably didn't help either. But what were your thoughts on that one?
I think when you have someone like Brendan Allen, who's such a specialist on the ground, he is. With his submission games, he is a specialist to a certain degree. So I get why he was looking for that takedown, because I imagine in his head he's thinking, right, if we are both on the ground, I'm in a dominant position, I have the clear advantage here. But I've got to say, to be fair to Imavov, he just keeps ticking off boxes, doesn't he? I don't think he always does it in a way which looks spectacular or is super convincing in regards to the decision always. But that's irrelevant at the end of the day. He keeps racking up wins in a division that won't have many fighters outside of that sort of classic top five that have really been in that title picture recently. Obviously, it's starting to get a little bit fresher at 185, but with names like Nasruddin Imavov, and then you have people like Fluffy Hernandez, Miguel Pereira coming up.
I was literally about to mention him. I want him all up in that title picture. I don't care how, but he's got to be fighting some ranked opponents soon. Has he got a fight scheduled?
I've got a fight for you, though.
Were you going to say him versus Brendan Allen? Or
I was going to say Marvin Vettori versus Brendan Allen is the fight. Already a narrative, already a fight in a Vegas bar, supposedly. We've got both of them coming off of losses. I think it makes a lot of sense. To be honest, I can't even remember Marvin Vettori's last fight because it was a long time ago.
He hasn't fought in ages, is he?
I think he hurt his arm, broke his arm potentially. Was his last fight Roman Dolidze?
I was there for that. I think he's fought since then. I believe. Cannonier. He lost to Cannonier in June last year.
Last year.
Been a little while for him.
Over 12 months for someone like Marvin Vettori, who is just a fighter, really. He really just is. He always reminds me of the brother in Harry Potter.
The
Boyle brothers?
Oh. Wait, who? Wait,
the ones. Kind of looks like...
Which brother?
He also looks a little bit like the Bulgarian man who turns into a shark in one of the Harry Potters.
Oh, yeah. No, I've got you. That's much more like it.
You know the one?
Yeah. Victor Crumb.
Victor Crumb.
Victor Crumb.
Victor Crumb.
I see the vision. It's
hella like Victor Crumb, in my opinion. Especially when he goes shaved head. Or the slightly on the spectrum shark in Shark Tale.
Okay, you lost me on that one.
You've never seen Shark Tale?
No, I have. I saw it when I was so young, so I don't remember it.
Quite camp shark.
I can't just type in Shark Tale shark, and because that's not going to work.
Well, you'll get the main cast. You just have to filter through.
Shark Tale fish cast. This is really what we do on here. I'm on the Shark Tale wiki right now. I don't know.
You're the weakest form of Jamie that we've ever had.
I've got it. Yeah.
What's his name?
Lenny.
Lenny.
I know which one you're talking about just because he does look like Marvin Vettori. He does. I didn't even I just know this is him. It can't be any other shark on here. It has to be this one.
Marvin Vettori is a Lenny as well. He just is a Lenny.
He does look like him.
If his name was not Marvin Vettori, his name would be Lenny.
I would have said what Darren Till has always said. He looks like an orc out of Lord of the Rings. I think that's probably the best example.
I was being kinder, I thought.
I mean, you've compared him to an animal. I don't think
Thing is with Vettori though, is he's an interesting cat, isn't he? Because he's best chin in MMA, ridiculously resilient, has good weapons in his offense. I like the straight back left. I like the kicks that he brings, the body kicks. He brings a tempo. He brings a pace. He can mix in his grappling. I'd just be interested to see what the next version of him looks like. Is it like a Paulo Costa, where he comes back and is very good, of course, is elite, but isn't quite at that level where you've rounded out your game to a certain, or you're a specialist to a certain extent, right? Because you have to be one of two things. You're either an Israel who is a specialist striker, who's also phenomenal at defending takedowns and keeping it standing, and that can be a successful champion for so long. There comes a time, like anyone, where it's only so long. But then you have the flip side of that, where you have to be good everywhere. And I'm not sure whether Marvin Vettori is the elite. Well, he's not, but we've seen it against people before. That he's not the elite of the striking. So to me, that tells me he then has to blend his games together. And I think if he's striking, he's clinching up, he's dirty boxing, elbowing knees, takedowns, very dangerous man. And has got submissions on his record. So it's not like he doesn't have jiu-jitsu either. So I don't think he's very far away from being a problem for a lot of people in that division, anyone in that division, like really. But he just needs a bit of momentum, I think.
Yeah. I love we just gone on a 5-10 minute tangent about how he looks like a fucking shark, and it's a guy who wasn't even on the Paris card. This is what we do. This is what we do here. But just circling back to that card on Saturday, I feel like if we're going to mention one more before going on to UFC 307, there's really only one man who just absolutely stole the show with a knockout, which I don't think anyone expected. Fares Ziam versus Matt Frivola. Now, we mentioned how that was one of the most exciting fights on paper, but I don't think anyone expected a knockout of that pedigree, because, my God, that knee is cemented Fares Ziam as a knockout of the year candidate. And I have to feel for that. He doesn't do too well against Frenchmen, it seems. Seems to be his big Achilles heel. But yeah, it was a brutal finish.
Incorrect. His Achilles heel, and I am in my armchair, so I'm going to be my armchair.
Steady on.
Yeah, I'm going to be my armchair analysis self fully. I was in the gym today, and I saw Ash and I saw Brad as well, and I was just chatting to them about the weekend, and they're just asking me what I thought about a couple of fights, and I was like, all right, I'm going to have to give it to you straight. I'm going to have to be full armchair analysis and sort of bring out a couple of things. Because I don't ever want to be critical. I know how difficult it is. I'm not, do this is easy, and it's easy to identify. But also, if you're speaking about the best people in the world and the highest level, if they do have a glaring hole, and I can see it, I'm going to mention it. And I think with Matt Frivola, he's obviously very skillful. He's very game. He's all of those good things. But he isn't sensible on the break. And I think anyone could have got knocked out by that knee, to be honest, because it was so well delivered. But he has a crippling inefficiency to stay defensively sound on the break. And I can count multiple times in that fight that he just kept circling out of danger and the clinch straight into big power kicks. Now, Fares Ziam didn't even threaten anything on those more times than not. But it was almost in deja vu against Benoit Saint Denis when he went out the other way, right? I just saw it. He'd done it once. He'd done it twice. He'd done it 3 times.
Can't play that game.
It was a little bit different in the clinch because it wasn't as if he was exiting sloppy. He just got brought onto a really, really nice knee. But similar principles, right? Just a little bit defensively lacking in those areas. And
I think Marab is a similar example with that.
Not a bad example,
issue.
Right? Not a bad example. Obviously, much more higher level, and also at a weight class where you can get away with it a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Not loads. People can knock people out at bantamweight. We see it all the time. But at lightweight, you're actually dealing with you're dealing with people that walk around 180 pounds, you know? So you're dealing with big men. Lightweights are big. When I stand next to lightweights in the gym, they're They're big people.
Yeah.
You know, they're big people.
So people see they weigh in at 155. They see they weigh in at 71 kg.
No.
What are they walking
No,
around at?
no.
85? No, not that much. But
It doesn't
maybe.
even matter what they're
That's
walking
not the
around
point, yeah.
at. Just actually as a physical being, they're big people.
Yeah.
I can stand next to lightweights and I'm 6'2", they'll be taller than me, bigger than me, and that's 155 pounds. To be fair, I'm pretty light at the moment. But my point is the margins for error are smaller, you know, they're much smaller. And we saw it happen multiple times, right? So we saw it happen 3 times on the card. We saw Brendan Allen get head kicked on the exit.
Yes. Oof. He took that well, didn't he?
From Imavov. We also saw Morgan Charrier get a beautiful left hook knockout. Again, just exiting the clinch. And I think that's just an area where it's maybe... There's always areas in any sport, right, which can be exploited further, I believe, or could be given more time or attention. I believe that's an area where people should be looking to be more aggressive, especially when people are circling out of danger against the cage and they've got their hands down. It's just opening them up for big head kicks. And someone who got knocked out like that on their very debut, Bryan Battle, got knocked out at heavyweight on his amateur debut brutally. And went in Paris with a certain walkout song, then goes out and just says, no. You are not hurting me today. You are not backing me up. And you most certainly are not winning this fight. You are going to walk backwards. You're going to take these punches. And I'm going to deliver them at a ferocious speed, tempo, and power. Eventually, you will melt. I will win. And I'm going to go absolutely nuts on this crowd. And he did exactly that. Cut one of the best promos in a long time.
It was good.
Had some really fun mic time and got another brilliant performance. Love Bryan Battle, big fan.
Yeah, he's one of my favourite fighters. That knockout, that head kick knockout of Sato? Oh, flush.
That was
I think
crazy.
The closest thing for me to rival Kevin Lee versus Gregor Gillespie. Or actually more similar to Edwards Usman, actually. Probably that's a more closer comparison. But of course, looking forward and ahead.
Hold up. One name on that card that we have to remember.
Oh, I'm looking.
I can't even remember myself. I just feel like there was a big talking point that we needed to mention.
Ludovic Klein. I mean, he didn't do anything to write home about. Chris Duncan.
Nah. Chris Duncan. Phenomenal performance. That was a very good performance.
Yeah,
you know
nice
what was actually the best fight this weekend?
What was?
Lewis McGrillen, Dean Garnett.
Yeah, I saw highlights of that.
Oh
Mental.
My goodness. That was one of the most insane fights I've ever seen. And what also added to it was I know of sort of mutually both fighters, right? So Dean obviously was preparing in Top Team up for this fight, and also Lewis McGrillen was actually Casuals Corner's first ever episode of a special guest. The one thing I always think when I see Lewis is the first ever time we had a guest on Casuals Corner, and it was actually when I did the interviews with my friends. So we had Lewis on and enjoyed chatting to him. It was fun. And we said, there's so much talent coming out of Manchester at the moment. Who's someone that we should keep an eye out for? Just threw that question to him. So this is 3 years ago, right? He says, there's this kid I know in Manchester who plays for the academy. Watch out. His name's Cole Palmer. I swear to God.
Way.
So I go on the news yesterday and see yet another masterclass. 4 goals.
You better believe I'm grateful for that, by the way.
90
Jesus.
yards out. And every time I see Cole Palmer doing this, firstly, I think this kid is just a generational special talent.
Unreal.
And the second thing is, I just think Lewis literally told me this 3 years ago when he was in the academy. No one knew his name. And I just always think, wow, I can't believe it panned out so perfectly like that.
Best believe I'm so grateful that man is at Chelsea Football Club. I am so blessed about that. Yeah, no, I did catch highlights of his fight. Absolute war by the looks of it.
Mate, that was ridiculous because he has dynamite in the left hand. And I think that's a narrative people use a lot for Lewis, and rightfully so, because it's his biggest weapon. But I think what people don't give him enough credit for is the diversity in it. Because when you actually watch how he's knocking people down, how he's knocking people out, if you just look at it at a surface level, it's just a left hand. But the delivery systems for his left hand are very different. The execution for the left hand are very different. And it's more of a weapon that occupies an entire vicinity. So he has uppercuts, you sort of see screw punches, he has longer hooks that he lands. You see ones go straight through the guard, you see ones right at the end of the punches coming around the guard, and there's just so many ways that he's got to keep people guessing what's coming. It's seriously impressive. So that was a phenomenal fight. But like you said, we've got a big one coming up this weekend as well, don't we?
Well, I think that might be a bit hyperbolic, to be honest with you, because on the surface, we look at the main event of UFC 307. It is good. And there's an interesting point I feel like I have to make here. Because I don't think this is even controversial. When you look at the main event, you look at Alex Pereira, and you look at the array of talent that they've put underneath him. The only thing it reminds me of is a classic Conor McGregor pay-per-view. Because they know, and I guess this is almost a compliment to Alex, because it shows you the level of star power and the level of belief that the UFC have in him, that they're willing to do something like this. Because what they always do with McGregor is put him at the top billing of a card and tend to, the main card below it is by normal standards subpar, because they know it's going to sell well anyway. And I think they're really doing a similar thing with Pereira here.
Who was their last pay-per-view? What was their last pay-per-view?
UFC, what, just now? The Sphere card. Good point. Yeah.
The Sphere card, right? So the Reddies involved in that event, when you have someone like Alex Pereira, who is one of the big stars, you're bang on with that assessment as well. It's also a cost thing. So if you have someone who's a big champion like Alex, who's stepped in on short notice, if you're a champion stepping in on short notice fighting at
he's fighting every week, isn't he? It really does feel like that.
It's actually nuts.
Do you know how boring my Casual Sky videos get? Because I have to repeat the same bloody shit every month.
This is Alex Pereira fighting.
Yeah, here we go again.
His story is very much like the last time I told it, only this time he's fighting again. But
another time,
that's the thing, right? Is you have a big star at the top of the tree who's getting a big paycheck. So you also have to dilute the people that you've got on the card.
I mean, it's smart. It's smart.
Of course.
I can't fault it.
You do have Jose Aldo. I've been told I've been saying this wrong a lot. I've become quite the Chael Sonnen of MMA world, I've realised. I try and say it correctly, but I just get Jose's mixed up with Jose's. And
I thought it was Jose.
Well, I thought that the J's in Brazil and in Portuguese were pronounced as a H, like Renato Moicano.
Yeah,
everyone says, why is he saying it like that? Right,
I don't know. I thought it was.
Thought that was right, mate. To be honest, if I'm doing anything, it's because I thought that was how it was meant to be done, for the most part. You know, it's really as simple as that.
Right, I'm gonna have to press you. I'm gonna get you on the spot. I want an immediate prediction. Just first, I want the outcome. Name an outcome. First thing that comes to mind.
4.
Oh, for the main event, of course.
Jeez, you need to be specific.
Sorry, my apologies.
Boy, I thought you were going to start hot firing fights at me, and I was just going to start listing them off.
That would be. We should do that.
We can do that as well. I honestly think Alex Pereira is going to knock him out.
I do as well.
I think there's
no, and this is coming from a big Khalil Roundtree fan. I'm a big fan of his story. I'm a big fan of his fight style. I think the best analogy of him that I've heard, and I still remember, is that he fights like you owe him lunch money, and he's trying to beat it out of you. That's probably the best way to describe how he fights.
300 pounds, so he probably would beat someone up for lunch money.
Yeah, he probably would back in school. But he seems like such a nice soul, so maybe not. But yeah, there is no room for sentiment, really, in the fight game. Sometimes things just don't go the way you want them to. Sometimes the good guy doesn't always win. And I think that's probably the case for UFC 307. I think Alex Pereira is going to put on a clinic, first or second round knockout. I don't want to see it. But
the question is, though, is with him, and this is a bit of a pessimistic view, but it's also true. He's been on such an incredible wave of momentum, and everything's just been going so incredibly well. It's kind of...
Don't do it. Don't say it.
It kind of is a bit like that, though, isn't it? Because you've won the middleweight belt, you've won the light heavyweight belt, you've headlined 300 viral knockout, you've done 302 or 3, whatever it was, viral knockout. So it's kind of like, is it going to be this time?
I feel like we're going to be saying it, and then we're going to immediately be saying, "No, that was dumb," and then we'll wait until the next time he fights.
It's always a fair question when you've got someone on this sort of momentum at that age in this part of their career. So I think that would be fair to say. But what jumps off to you on that card?
I mean, people aren't going to like this. I'm kind of excited for Juliana Pena to come back because I've always thought she's got quite a fun submission game, to be honest with you, and she's good on the mic. I think it's going to be quite entertaining. I think she's going to submit Raquel Pennington and become a 2-time bantamweight champion of the world. There we go.
I'm a fan. I don't know why people don't. A lot of people don't like Juliana, but one thing's very clear when you listen to her speak, not when you listen to her go on the mic and give it the pantomime villain. No, when you actually listen to her speak, she understands the game. She is a veteran. And honestly, her skin is flawless. Honestly, her skin is flawless. I remember seeing her in the gym at 2 a.m. with a sweat on, and she was glowing. She was glowing. She was a golden hue. She was a phenomenal bronze colour. My point is, when you see people in MMA for any amount of time, especially someone that's been in it as long as her, female or male, their face has seen some... She's been in some wars, like actual wars, but skin just remained...
It's genetics, man.
Quite incredible. Outside of her skin routine and her dentist visits that I managed to fill the listeners in last time, did I or did I not drop this fight exclusive before anyone in the world?
You did. I didn't forget. I mentioned it on stream. Actually, no, I didn't mention it. Someone else in my chat brought it up.
Did they?
Yeah. I
What
can't
did they
remember
say?
when, but I wish I remembered. It was quite a while ago now. But I remember it coming up in conversation on my stream.
That's fine.
Otherwise, I would probably go into the deep specifics. But obviously, I've given my prediction on that. I want to hear yours.
The MMA Creators Podcast actually gave a fight exclusive for a belt months before anyone had. But the only reason I said that, to be honest, I'll actually be honest, the only reason I said that is because I knew it was just going on the podcast, and I knew that there would just be a few people that heard it, and I knew that they wouldn't do anything with that information. Yeah. Like, they wasn't going to go and start creating posts and things like that.
No,
so,
of course not.
You know?
Isn't that what it's about, though? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know the ethics around that.
For the people. The ethics are whatever you want them to be, and however you want to be perceived in the industry. My perception that I just want in the industry is, if you tell me something, it doesn't go past me. And that's something I'm quite big on, because you only get one name. And once that's tarnished to any degree, you can't ever really revive that. You really do only get one chance and one chance only. So that isn't the only reason that I like to just keep things to myself, but it is also another reason, because you just get more information. Like, the amount of things I get told now, I think, just because people know that I'm not going to go
and you've got a good rep. Yeah.
And I've got no life. Like, I don't have, you know, like, I've got no life. I just come and sit on camera, and they know that
it'll pay dividends. That's
for
what I
sure.
say.
For sure.
Enjoy it. Listen, in 20 years, you know, people will be jealous. So I think that's always the mentality to have.
Not jealous, but more so in 20 years, I'll have the deep scoops on different things.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, I was more thinking of a life perspective. I think you're going to be in a good spot in 20 years. So,
okay.
Those people will be looking at, yeah.
Me, I'm like,
you're still stuck in your bloody mic. You're still stuck in the works there. You're like 20 years later, still getting those scoops. But I guess that's what it's about, isn't it? That's the mindset you have to have.
I'll work till I die.
Yeah, I'm sure.
My mission and objective has always just been to do whatever I wanted to do, what I found most enjoyable, and create a business out of that. So I'm never going to stop doing things I enjoy inherently. So if I were to stop doing things I enjoy, I would end up stop working. So I just imagine I'll just work up until I die, really, every day.
I am going to have to run through a couple of these because one of my AirPods has died and the other one is probably imminently about to kick the bucket. And
let's sprint through some.
It does line up actually quite nicely with our timing. So Pena versus Kennington. I, of course, had by submission for Juliana and New.
I think Juliana's going to knock her out.
Interesting. I don't know about what with the TKO. I mean, surely, yeah. I mean, I can see it.
I think she's going to be able to, at some point, get a good position on the ground and just TKO her.
Yeah, that's a good shout. Actually, good shout. She's actually the underdog going into that, which is very interesting. Did not expect that. Maybe a little bit of money to be made there. Jose Aldo versus Mario Batista.
I'm going Aldo.
Yeah, as am I. I doubted him last time. Well, I think we both doubted him actually.
I did.
I'm pretty sure you did.
Against who?
Against what's his name? You know, Martinez. I'm pretty sure we both picked Martinez in that fight. I'm 99% sure.
I may have done, to be fair. But he just showed me that he was as good as ever. So, going out.
Very good. I'm with you there. By decision, I had him by for this one. Kayla Harrison, Ketlen Vieira. I think it's going to be a brutal finish, submission or knockout by Kayla. And then we're going to see a Mike moment calling for the head of the main event or the co-main event's winner. I think that's probably what we're going to see. For me, she's destined to win the belt. I'd put a lot of money saying that she will. I'm assuming you're on board with that too.
Agreed. I think she's going to take her down and smash her in the first round. Elbows.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Roman Dolidze, Kevin Holland. This one I was very conflicted on. I've actually switched back to Kevin Holland via decision, but again, close fight for me.
I've got Kev by decision.
Yeah. We rarely disagree, do we? Seriously. I feel like great minds. That's what I say. Wonderboy Thompson, Joaquin Buckley. I've got the vet in this one, but could go either way by decision.
I'm leaning on Buckley just because I think he's going to be smart enough to know that he's not going to strike and he's going to look immediately to implement his wrestling game.
Really?
And I think he is explosive enough and enough of an athlete to be able to really explode into a shot, not get too dazzled outside. I think he's going to be able to pick a time. Hard to take down, Wonderboy. Very hard to take down. But we have seen it done before. And if Gilbert Burns can take down Wonderboy...
Good point.
I think Buckley's a better wrestler, just strict wrestling, than someone like a Gilbert Burns. So I do believe that he'll win that Buckley.
Yeah. I mean, regardless of whoever wins it, I think that's a really exciting matchup and a big step up for Buckley. I think it's probably a little bit long overdue. He's had a nice upturn.
Wouldn't be surprised if he got pieced up on the outside, though.
That was where I was thinking with that. But either way, I think it's one of those cards. You know, how many times have I said that the ones on paper that don't look as good always end up being the best?
I don't really know what you're talking about there, to be honest.
I don't think it's that great. But
you've got Alex Pereira, you've got Pena, you've got Jose Aldo, and then you've got Wonderboy Thompson and Kayla Harrison. Like, Kayla Harrison is fun to watch, to be fair. She is.
Very true.
Two-time Olympic
Again,
champ.
I'm happy to be proven wrong, and I think I probably will be. That tends to be how these things go. But it's an exciting card, and of course, on the horizon, we've got UFC 308, which I'm sure we will get stuck into at some point in the future. But that's Will. I'm Leo. This has been the MMA Careers Podcast, episode number 70. And we will see you next Sunday. Have a good one.